Now, if you have a large crack like this in your sidewalk or driveway, here is a quick and easy DIY solution. We'll start off with a nylon cup bristle brush and our drill and just clean both sides. You might have some old sealant like I do here. You'll want to remove that to make sure you're down to clean, bare concrete. Now, we will not be filling this with concrete. Others have commented that's the way to do it over the years. I don't believe so. I think this is a better option. So go ahead and fill any of the voids with just some standard play sand you can get down at any home improvement store. And we'll be using a backer rod next. Now, since this is such a large gap and it's irregular in shape, I'm going to actually use a pool noodle and cut that down to size. Pool noodles are exactly the same type of material as a backer rod, so they're perfect for this type of application. And the width of this gap is towards the extreme of what you'd want to fill with this type of fix, but I will show you here in a minute what this looks like multiple years in the future to prove that it'll work for your application. If you have a consistent width on your crack, you can just use that gray backer rod and just size it slightly larger to your crack to make sure it's firm in the hole. You don't want it floating around, you want it secure. And also, your sealant is going to flow, so make sure you have a dam here at the end that will catch that sealant and hold it in place. I'm just using some duct tape here and doubling it back to make sure the sticky side isn't going to be against the sealant. And then the last step on this exterior fix, we'll place 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick of sealant, and you'll want to be right below the top surface. You don't want to go all the way up to the top surface of the concrete. I recommend Sika and Tremco, and you'll see a link in the description with all the products that I recommend. Sika I use on completely level surfaces, and then Tremco if there's a little bit of a slope. And then the key to get blended in is just a very light coating of dry sand. This also helps keep leaves and bugs out of the sealant as it's drying. And here's what it looks like right after applying. And 2 years in the future, this is what it looks like. It's holding up great after the repair. And one key to this is I did fix the water issue. The clogged gutters and the misaligned downspout are fixed, so the sidewalk has stayed in place, and our sealant has bonded to both sides and still looking great multiple years after the original repair. Now, this is just standard maintenance we all have to take on as homeowners, and if you need a little help, we have our 2025 home maintenance checklist, complete with monthly, seasonal, and yearly tasks and QR codes hanging on your fridge or out in your garage, and you'll always have a quick reference of what you need to be doing and the complete videos to walk you through each of those items. Now for the interior solution. Inside of a garage, I have this crack that goes down the whole length of the garage, and I have to get it permanently repaired before doing a garage epoxy floor coating. So I'm just using a floor scraper here and scraping up loose material from some type of old repair that's simply not going to cut it. Then I'll move on to an abrasive disc that I'm going to install on my angle grinder and start to clean up each side, a couple inches on each side of that crack. And this is just getting down to the clean concrete and getting all of that old material off before moving on to a step where we'll actually grind down the concrete. Why am I doing this? Because I have a little bit of a lip and it's not even side to side. And I want to make sure it's perfectly smooth before we start building this up. And you can see that we need to clean out the cracks now for the next step. You have two different types of cracks. You have hairline cracks like this, which you actually need to open up. You need to make them look worse before they're going to look better. And then you have the main crack where you're using a V-notch blade, cutting out any loose concrete and also cutting each side of the wall here back to get a little bit wider opening. And then the last step of our prep was with a shop vac. We'll just clean out any dirt and debris from the crack, getting ready for our 2-part epoxy. You'll see a link in the description or this QR code if you're watching on your TV, and you'll want to use the right products. Concrete Floor Solutions is the pro-grade material. Don't skimp. Don't do all the labor and skimp on Rust-Oleum products. I would go the extra mile, get the pro-grade stuff. These guys actually do this for a living, and use EHR 10 for a 10% discount. So let's fill the crack up now, and this is with ultra fine sand from Concrete Flooring Solutions. Do not use the play sand from Home Depot or Lowe's. It's going to have moisture in it, and it's just not going to sit down into the cracks and crevices like this stuff will do. Then you'll use your 2-part epoxy, part A, part B, mix it up, and you only have 45 seconds of working time. So you have to have everything in place, make sure you have gloves, and you're going to go back and forth multiple times, kind of working section by section. And what you want to do is pay attention, because your first will look like it's completely full. You want it all the way to the top of the concrete, but it will soak into the sand, so you'll have to go back over again to make sure it's pooling out. And you can see it pooling out past the crack. That is what you want. You want it to be overflowing and kind of smoothing everything out. Because your next step, after 30 minutes of setup, it only takes 30 minutes to dry, you can go back through with your grinder and grind everything down smooth. And that's why we want a little extra epoxy, so we can smooth everything out and we do not have any divots. And you can move on to something like I am, which is an epoxy floor coating, and you'll never see that crack again. So here's the finished product after doing that repair, and overall it looks great and it's ready for the floor coating.
Now let me know what you guys would do differently, or if you just have some questions on your own projects right below the video in the comments. I always appreciate hearing from you. If you want to see that complete step-by-step process for the epoxy floor coating, check out this video right here. Or if you have a concrete slab ahead of you, a DIY pour, I did a head-to-head battle between the Harbor Freight concrete mixer versus a new mud mixer, which has some really cool features, especially for DIY homeowners. So thanks for joining me on this video, and we'll catch you on one of those next ones. Take care.